Nani Mamino
A good Tavach, everyone, and a good Chodesh, a gebenchte Chodesh, and yeah. So we are coming into Parshas Vayetze, and right at the beginning, we all know it says very powerful words. It says Vayifka b'makom. He bumped into the place. Vayifka b'makom. He Yakov encounters the place. Now we know that that's the holiest place. Yakov is going, and Rashi tells us that as Yakov was going towards the place, towards the Hara Maria, towards the holiest place, the Beis Hamikdash came towards him. As soon as Yakov turned around and he realized that, I forgot. Sometimes we have a hergish, I forgot. And then we think, it doesn't make sense to turn around or not turn around. I had such an experience on Friday that all day long, I really wasn't wearing my big day Shabbos. And then I was thinking, like, what am I? It's your Chodesh Kislev, such a big Yom Tov. What's with you? I was already in the end of the day. I was going to the mikveh, and I said, okay, if I've fallen, I missed out not putting on big day Shabbos on such a big Yom Tov. And then I said, you know what? It's the last time I'm going out on the street. I'm turning around, and I'm going to put on the big day Shabbos. So then I put it on. I said, okay, what is the worth of turning around and going? And now I see Yaakov. Yaakov turned around. He was already at Chara, and he could have also said, I'm here already. And he turned around. And he said, let me go back a second time. So he went back, and what happened? Boom. The Hara Maria came towards him. And he bumped into the place. And we know the rest is the story of having a Beis Hamikdash. And Yaakov Avinu puts the foundation of the Beis Hamikdash. Ein Zakim Beis Elokim. He lays the foundation, which is going to be the Beis Hamikdash, which is the ultimate home of Hashem in this world. So we're going to talk about another Vayivka b'makom, against another encounter with the space. An encounter with the space. I don't know if everybody over here knows the story of Kfar Chabad. How does Kfar Chabad become Kfar Chabad? What happened was that in 1948, when the Jews were attacked by all the surrounding Arab countries, the Arab armies around warned the Arabs who lived in Eretz Yisrael in scattered villages all over the place. They said to them, clear the area because we're coming in to massacre all the Jews, and we don't want to kill you guys along with them. It should be easy for us to kill. I don't know how much they care of killing the Arabs, but they just didn't. They wanted to make it easier, at least, to definitely kill the Jews. So they told the Arabs to clear the area, and like this, they have an open field. An open chas v'shalom, Rahman al-Islam, to do what they wanted to do, not having to concern with anything. Of course, Gott immense tracht and Gott lacht. The Eibishter laughed at it all. Yeshe b'shamayim Yitzchak, and Israel repelled all of its enemies. The Jewish people took over the entire area, and now they had the land with miracles. The Eibishter gave us the land with miracles. And but now they had all these villages, and they wanted to make sure that it gets settled. The most important thing is to get settled. So they were offering up the various different portions of the land to various different Jewish organizations. Many of them were like various different Zionistic organizations. This group and this group and that group that were going to come to the land and work the land and build the land, and with all those pioneers who had that vision of building Eretz Yisrael. Shazar, who was Shneir Zalman, what's his last name? I don't remember, but he was later the president of Israel. He came from a Chabad family, and he wasn't president yet, but he was already a significant voice he had Ben Gurion's ear or whoever it was, and he suggested that perhaps one village they should give to Lubavitch. They should give to the previous Rebbe, because Chabad has a quite a significant group of Hasidim, and they can also build up a certain portion. So Ben Gurion, or whoever it was in charge over there, agreed. So they came to the Friediger Rebbe and they showed him a map and they gave him the various different options of which portion he should take. Which village? It could have been anywhere from the north to the south, from the east to the west, all over Israel. How many kibbutzim are there? How many places are there all over Israel? The Friediger Rebbe looked at the map and chose that particular town or that particular village to make it Kfar Chabad. Okay, so fast forward many years, and that becomes Kfar Chabad, and we know how much the Rebbe and how much held the sacredness of Kfar Chabad as it being such a special place. So lo and behold, we find out now something absolutely extraordinary. The story has been already shared many times, especially with this group of women and with those that join over here. Is that the Rebbe was once asked permission that she built for him a house in Kfar Chabad, and the Rebbe said, a house, a palace. And from there was born the idea that we have to start preparing a palace for Moshiach. At the palace that we know, Shalva Bar Nesayach, that part of the restoration, as we discussed many times, there are three things the Yidden need to daven for in order for the Geula to come. Three things we have to daven for Malchus of Hashem, and obviously to daven for the Malchus of Hashem is to think about a place for Hashem, which leads us to the third thing actually that it mentions, which is the Beis HaMikdash, which we know that our Yidden today's days are so excited already about the Beis HaMikdash. But well, Yidden have been davening by the Kaisel HaMaravi and davening there and crying. And we also know there's Machon HaMikdash that have done such spectacular work in preparing already with all the studies about the Beis HaMikdash and the Kalim of the Beis HaMikdash. And they actually have Kalim, which they're actually going to use in the Beis HaMikdash, not they are saying these are a replica. This is something that could look like the Kalim of the Beis HaMikdash. But this is all showing our Am Yisrael and the Jewish people are a Vikshu es Hashem Alekeim, there's David Malcolm, and the last thing is that and Yerushalayim and the Beis HaMikdash. But part of it is a Vikshu es David Malcolm. The Yidden have to be mevakesh, they have to be searching and begging and seeking out the restoration of Malchus Beis David, which, as we know, the key to everything is Malchus Beis David. Because Malchus Beis David makes it all happen. If you learn in Rambam, you see that the drive in Kibbutz Galuyos, the drive in Binyan HaMikdash, the drive in Yilcham Mechamas Hashem and getting rid of Mamdani and the likes and all whatever and all the whatever other chaleris there are in the world that still need to be taken care of. All of this is all going to be driven by Mashiach Tzidkenu. So it's our avodah to connect to Mashiach. So building a palace for Mashiach, as discussed already many times, makes so much sense. If you're making a hachana for the Geula, Beis HaMikdash, we discussed many times, we don't have the ability to build. However, Machon HaMikdash at least did whatever they were able to do now. Whatever we can get done now, let's get done now. And the Chafetz Chaim, we know, used to told that Kahanim should learn, that the Kahanim should be ready. Mashiach is coming. But all of history, not necessarily. Even though Yidden had a chakalei b'choyim sheyaveh, they didn't mamish feel that, not necessarily that everybody felt it happening. The word tzaddikim felt that way. But now is Idan HaGeula. There's no question. We're living at the Zman of the Geula. So the Chafetz Chaim already in his days was crying to the Jewish people that every Kayan should be baki in all the halachas that are shaykh to Kayan. So the best preparation we could do is build an Armon, build a palace for Melech HaMashiach. But the question over here right away became, Vas epis to build a palace in Kfar Chabad? That doesn't make any sense. And the Rebbe went and chose a location in Kfar Chabad to build his palace. Why would you build a palace for Mashiach in Kfar Chabad? It just doesn't seem to be right. The big question, no matter, I've been involved with this for quite a while, any person that asks the question say, like some people accept the Rebbe said so the Rebbe said so. But some people who want ask a simple question. Say, why would Mashiach's palace be in Kfar Chabad? Why wouldn't Mashiach's palace be in Yerushalayim? So that's the big question. It should really be Yerushalayim. So here there is a stunning revelation. And this revelation was, there was a Yid, his name was Rav Dov Lavnuni, Olav Hashalom. It was a great scholar. And he kochtzik a lot. He was oisek a lot in the Yanim of Beis HaMikdash, in the Yanim of Geula, and the Yanim of Beis HaMikdash. He very much was engaged in that, and he even made a model of the Beis HaMikdash. He brought it once to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe shows him, mamish, unbelievable. He made a perfect model of the Beis HaMikdash, and he brings it to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe looks at it, and the Rebbe shows him that the kevesh, the ramp, is off by mamish, like a few millimeters. And he noticed that the proportion of it towards the Mizbeach, the only way to be able to notice that is if you're mamish living the Beis HaMikdash and you're living the Mizbeach. Obviously, the mind of the Rebbe is like so great, but this is amazing. Anyways, this Rav Lavnuni who heard in 1992 that the Rebbe had asked that a palace should be built in Kfar Chabad also had the same question, but instead of questioning the Rebbe, he realized that this is something that he should do his own research. So he went to Sefer Yechezkel and he did some research on Sefer Yechezkel and he found something. He discovered something astounding. And the astounding thing that he found in Sefer Yechezkel is as follows. I'm going to be very brief with what it describes over there. We know that when the Yidden came into Eretz Yisrael the first time with Yeshua, Eretz Yisrael was divided into 12 chalakim, into 12 portions. Eretz Yisrael proper was actually only divided into 10 chalakim, and then there were 2 chalakim on the other side, on the eastern side of the Jordan, which we know, Shevet Reuven and Shevet Gad, and half of Shevet Menashe took their portion over there. The rest of the Shvatim, 9.5 tribes, took their portion on the western side of the Jordan River, which is, Eretz Yisrael. Now, but we all know that those chilakim are various different parts in Eretz Yisrael. You can do your research, you learn your Navi, where they are. And the Makam HaMikdash, Yerushalayim, and the Makam HaMikdash itself straddles the Chelek between Yehuda and Binyamin. Part of the Beis HaMikdash most of the Beis HaMikdash was in the Chelek of Yehuda, but the Mizbeach was in the Chelek of Binyamin. Okay? But we know that there is a future Nevuah regarding the Chaluk of Eretz Yisrael in the time of the Geula. And what's very strikingly different is in 2 things, 2 very important things. Actually, 3 things. Number 1, Eretz Yisrael is going to be much, much larger, not only than it is today, but even than it was when we went into, because we know it's going to be a land not of 7 nations, it's going to be a land of 10 nations. It's going to be much, much larger. In addition to that, the portions themselves are all going to be equal portions. So it says in Sefer Yechezkel. Each of those portions are going to be equal portions. They're all going to be 25,000 rods wide, and length goes very, very far. I'm not sure if there's an exact measurement, but it says very, very long strips of land. They go deep, deep, deep into the eastern desert. Perhaps you can go far as far as you can go, and then it can extend further and further in, depending on the need of Eretz. We have a bracha this week in the parasha, Faratz the Yom of Akedma, that the Jewish people are going to explode. Ashallah Yisafim Erov, you won't be able to count how many Yidden there are. The greater the need, the more we'll be able to move east into the lengthen Eretz Yisrael towards the east. But Eretz Yisrael proper, again, is going to be divided into strips of land, all equal. And these strips sit one on top of each other. The way it's organized in Sefer Yechezkel is that we're going from south. South would be from the Nilus, from somewhere where Eilat is today, all the way down, but close to the Sinai Peninsula, in all the way down at not far from Egypt, and then from there strips, and strips. Each one 25,000 rods, which comes out around in today's measurements that we should understand it in our minds, strips of land where each one is about between 45 and 50 miles long. Okay, so that's the second difference. That number 1, the portions are not going to be different sizes, different things. Everybody's going to line up portion after portion after portion. I'm sorry, that's the first difference. The second difference that it's going to be is that it's not going to be divided into 12 portions, but it's going to be divided into 13 portions. What is going to be the 13th portion? So 12 are the 12 Shvatim. And in Sefer Yechezkel it says that one of those lots, one of those portions of land, which is going to be exactly equal in size to all the other 12 portions, and that portion is going to belong to Moshiach himself. It's called the Chelek HaNasi. The Chelek HaNasi is going to be equal to the other 12 portions of each one of the Shvatim. And the Navi gives you an exact measure of where the position of each Shevet. Meaning, it's going to start all the way, when it starts, hold on, I'll pull it up. So from the bottom up, it actually, you can't see, below Zvulun, or maybe you could see, but I'm not seeing it. Below Zvulun, it starts with Gad. Gad is the bottom, meaning the furthest south, all the way down by where next to Egypt, next to Mitzrayim. On top of it is Zvulun's Chelek, a strip of Yisachar's Chelek, and then Shimon, and then Binyamin, And then on top of Binyamin is the Nasi. And then between the Nasi, the Chelek Nasi is between the portion of Yehuda and the portion of Binyamin, which would mean that we're going to have an entire shift in what Jerusalem is, because today's days, in the old division, Yehuda and Binyamin were bordering each other. There was no space in between. And the border of Yehuda and Binyamin runs right across Yerushalayim, right across the Makam HaMikdash. You can see now in this little map, you can see how Yerushalayim is in this Chelek HaNasi. But again, in the way it was in the past was that this Chelek HaNasi didn't exist. So Yehuda and Binyamin were chalakim, were shutfim in this area, and Yerushalayim itself didn't belong to anybody, was loy neschal kol shvatim, and fine. And then on top of it, you have Yehuda, Reuven, Ephraim, Menashe, all the way up to Dan, all the way on the top. Now, just to give you an example of how large this is, today's days modern Israel, from the bottom, from the furthest point south, which is Eilat, all the way up to the highest places in north, Kiryat Shmona, all the way up there, where next to where you're bordering what's on top of Israel over there, Lebanon, is around 250 miles or something like that. The length of the land is 250 miles. In the time of Moshiach, when we're going to have the land, it's going to be over 600 miles in length. So you're talking about tripling the size, more than tripling the size of the length of Eretz Yisrael. We're talking, according to Rabbi Yisrael Zalman Weisberg, he says it goes all the way up into Turkey. Actually, it's not. It's you look in the Navi and Yechezkel. I heard it from him, but then I looked it up. It seems to be going all the way to the city called Antukhya, which is all the way up in southern Turkey. So most of western Syria is part of Eretz Yisrael, and Lebanon, and so many of these countries are all swallowed up in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, that's the future. Now let's take a look at something really, really fascinating. Now we're going to bring up this portion of the Nasi, which is a new portion, which didn't exist. This portion of the Nasi is going to entail within it the Beis Hamikdash, and Yerushalayim is going to be within the portion, within the strip that belongs to Mashiach himself. This is Mashiach's property. What does that mean? It says in Yechezkel, Perek Mem Ches, Pasuk Chaf, that Mashiach takes from his own portion, from his strip of land, and I'm going to bring up a different picture in a moment. Let's bring up photo number 3. You can bring up photo number 3. All right, here we go. If you can all see this, the area that is highlighted is when you see the blue and the green on the two sides, that whole entire area is that strip that you saw before called Chelek HaNasi. Why is it green and blue? Because there is a square in the middle that is 25,000 rods long and 25,000 rods. Now, rods are 6 amos each rod. It's called a kaneh in the pasuk. So 6 amos, 20, which is about 150 amos, 1,000 amos one way and 150,000 amos the other way. This area is called the truma. The reason it's called the truma is that even though this is in Mashiach's personal property, he donates it to the communal need. What does it mean he donates it to the communal need? I mean, he's told that he has to do so. It's the Torah tells him that it's carved out from Mashiach's personal property. And he gives this whole spot that's going to become the area that belongs to the Beis Hamikdash, Yerushalayim, and the Kohanim, the Leviim, and so forth. In other words, we almost can say that this entire area is the greater city of Jerusalem that Mashiach is going to donate from his personal property to include whatever Yerushalayim needs. Now, the reason I'm saying it's the greater Jerusalem, because it's not really going to be the city of Yerushalayim. The city of Yerushalayim is going to be bigger than it is now, but it's still only, we're going to show you in a minute where it's going to be. It says in the Nevuah in the future that there's going to be a very big space between Har HaBayis and the city of Yerushalayim. Because Har HaBayis is going to be so holy, and it's going to have such hashras hashchina, such an incredible, way holier than it was in the second Beis Hamikdash, and even beyond in the first Beis Hamikdash. Therefore, it's not going to be appropriate for people to live very close next to Yerushalayim. There's going to have to be space. So the way this area is going to be divided is it's going to be divided into three portions. The upper portion is 10,000 cubits long, wide. When I say the upper, is when you're looking at this map, you can see it seems to be divided, but you can see the blue lines. It's not so strong, but you can see a blue line running horizontally. Yeah, that line. So that line delineates and then you have another line. So it's divided from north to south. From north to south, it's divided into three strips. This whole area is the strip of the Nasi from north to south. It's the 50 miles, as we discussed. The entire area is the 50 miles. But each one of them, 50 miles by 50 miles around. But each individual strip over here is like this. The first strip on the top is 10,000 rods by 25,000 rods. Okay, that's the upper area. And that's going to be the Makam where the Kohanim are going to live. The Kohanim are all going to live in this sacred area around the Beis HaMikdash. Where is the Beis HaMikdash going to be? On the Har HaBayis. And the Har HaBayis is smack in the middle of the upper third of this square piece of land. That's where the Har HaBayis is around it, is. There's not going to be a city around it. It's going to be the area of the Kohanim. Of course, the Kohanim are going to have to be very holy people in those days to be able to live in such incredible Kedusha and such holiness. Beneath that comes the next strip of land, which is also 10,000 cubits wide by, not cubits, 10,000 rods wide by 25,000 rods long, that area. And that area is going to be where the Leviim will be living. Okay, so the Kohanim live in the upper portion surrounding the Beis Hamikdash. The Leviim live in this middle portion. And now the last portion, which leaves 5,000 rods left, the bottom portion, that's where the city of Yerushalayim is going to be. The city of Jerusalem is going to be in that portion, and Yidden will be able to live in that area as well. Which Yidden, I don't know how it will be figured out who can live there. Maybe that's where, if you're very wealthy and you can buy yourself a piece of land. I don't know what is going to decide who, which tzaddikim, or what, where and when, I'm not sure. So the Kohanim live in the upper portion, and over here, the middle is the Leviim, and the bottom portion, it describes in Sefer Yechezkel, the city is where the city of Yerushalayim is going to be, and all the other and areas around where Yidden are allowed, Yisraelim are allowed to live. Now, this area, this blue area, does not eat up the entire Makam HaNasi. This is the area which is called the truma. This is what he gives as a truma. He separates it, like you give truma to the Beis Hamikdash, you give truma to the Kohen. He separates it and gives it to the Kohanim, the Leviim, and to the city of Yerushalayim. What's his own personal portion? That is to the right side and to the left side. If you take a look at the two green spots on the right side, on the left side, these are areas that are 50 miles long. They cover large swaths of the land of Israel. On the left side, you can see it runs until the Mediterranean Sea. And on the right side, it runs into the east, and it continues on, I don't know how far, but this is where the right side is. It goes into the desert on the east side of this truma. Moshiach, this is Moshiach's private property. He can build palaces. He can build golf courses. He can build whatever he wants. Obviously, Moshiach is not into all of that. But whatever it is, this is his private land on both these sides. If this is the case, that's where Moshiach is going to have his Armon in. Now, he could have, I'm sure, an Armon also somewhere in Jerusalem, maybe, but his private property that was allotted to him for his residence is on these two sides. Now, when we do an examination on the left side, the side closer to the water, if you can take a look at the map, now over here, you can see on the bottom, it goes all the way, this area starts all the way from Be'er Sheva. So that's quite south in Israel. If you're familiar with Israel, all the way Be'er Sheva is part of, it connects to the Parsha. That's where, Avram and the wells and all that, and Yitzchak, Yetze Yakov Be'er Sheva. Be'er Sheva is in Moshiach's private property. It's part of that. Now, further over here, interesting is Gaza. Now, it depends on who you're using for measurements. If you're using Rabbi Avram Chaim No, if you're using the various different shittais that there are in what's the size of an amma, what's the size of a cubit, and based on that, you can figure out the size of the length of a rod, which is 6 cubits. So, what's astounding is that Gaza is in Moshiach's private territory. If you ever wonder why Gaza becomes the most difficult place to conquer in all of Eretz Yisrael, there's so much opposition, there's so much resistance. And by the way, Gaza was a problem place for the Jewish people going back throughout all of history. Shimshon HaGibor is already fighting in Gaza. This is a place that has been like mamish, a place of terrible trouble from the beginning of time. I think this area includes Gerar, where Avimelech lived. This is all in this area, but this is all according to the future nevuos of Sefer Yechezkel. All of this is the land that is Mashiach's property. Now, if you go all the way up to the top of this map, it includes a lot of Tel Aviv. If you open up this map, I'm opening it. I don't know how much you can see it over here, but on the top there's an area called the Maccabim, today's area. That's like the tippy top, or Modin. Modin is already in Shevet Yehuda, but Maccabim, meaning the upper portion, on top of Mashiach's portion, is the portion of the tribe of Yehuda in the future. But Maccabim is included in Mashiach's future. I don't know exactly where Maccabim is, but I can see it on the map over here. And a little beneath that, you can see where the red dot is. That red dot is Kfar Chabad, which comes out something really super, super crazy. That Kfar Chabad is in the Chelek of the personal property of Moshiach. So when the Rebbe pinpoints a place and says to build the Armon al Moshiach, and the Rebbe actually pointed to an actual small piece of real estate, which we know today where it is. It's a piece of land that's right over there, that's still empty there today. That land should be. Now, what's interesting is, if you can look at this map, you can see that that is actually the closest Mashiach can get, almost, when he's still in his own private property and is not inside the Chelek truma. Because right on the left side of that red dot is already, even though today's days it's not, but it's going to be the Chelek truma. It's going to be the Chelek of the Kohanim. It's going to be part of Yerushalayim of the future. That is all going to be part of Greater Jerusalem of the future. That means that Mashiach's palace is if he puts it, let's say, in the bottom, he puts it over here by Gaza, like lower, next to Beersheba, anywhere, he's going to be opposite the city of Jerusalem. He's going to be opposite the Chelek HaLevim, but he's not going to be opposite the Chelek of Har HaMoriah. It makes perfect sense that Mashiach is going to build his Armon the closest he can to the city of Yerushalayim itself and Makam HaMikdash. So if we need a logical, or it has to make sense in our seichel as well, in our head as well, why the Rebbe would say to build a Armon in Kfar Chabad, suddenly, through an explanation in Sefer Yechezkel, we find out how limited our mind is, how small-minded we are. Because I guarantee you, if you go to most people in the world and you tell them that there is a thought, and the Lubavitcher Rebbe initiated that an Armon should be built, and it's in Kfar Chabad, they say you're crazy. But he just say, am I crazy, or did you not learn Sefer Yechezkel? Now, almost no one learns Sefer Yechezkel, these last few pages of Sefer Yechezkel, because it's pretty difficult measurements, and it's complicated, and you have to. So unless you have some biblical scholars who actually know this. So here is where something that is so important for us to understand, and going back to what I said in the early thing, that the Friediger Rebbe, who vayifka b'makom, who put his finger down on one particular town and said, that's the one I want to for the Chelek of the Chabad community who's going to be doing the work of being Makarev the Geula and spreading Hasidus and all of that. That's the portion that I'm picking from all the places all over Israel. It becomes actually incredible. Like, wow, how like these tzaddikim, whether the Friedrich, I'm sure the Friedrich Rebbe was conscious and he knew even or Ruach, I don't know. Truthfully, I'm not going to miss in how, what, where, and what was guiding the Friedrich Rebbe, or he knew the destiny and so on and so forth of what Kfar Chabad is. Whatever, it's not negaya to me. But one thing is we know is that Kfar Chabad is literally in the Chelek and the portion of the Nasi. So that is, I thought, something really that is incredible and very, very special. Everybody knows that something that is so holy and so godly and so significant, so important, is going to have pushback. Take a look. We discussed how Gaza is the most difficult place for Israel to conquer. And even we were so close already, and yet, now they're making it international and this and that. It's like incredible because it's like this. It does. Chelek Nasi, Chelek of Moshiach. This is huge. How much more so when it comes to actual doing a pa'ula that can activate and bring Mashiach in such a powerful way. But a lot of times it's very important to realize that whenever there is an obstacle, the obstacles are not made chas v'shalom to block us, but they made to challenge us to go deeper. Let us hope that just us imagining this in our head and speaking about it right speaking about it together now at a Fabringen and Matzah Shabbos by Sudas David Malka Mashiach. This itself should be enough that we don't have to go through all the stages to make this to make it actually happen, but it should happen as in the snap of the finger, instantly now. A good tavach, a gebench tavach, and let us see the geula. Take it from Miyad Mamish. The Jewish people know that the time of the Geula has arrived, the time of the redemption has arrived. Now the question is, are we just going to stand by and be bystanders and watch it happen? But if we get involved, the Jewish people have enormous power. Why don't we actually start building for Mashiach? Now the Beis Hamikdash we can't build. We're not allowed to build the Beis Hamikdash. But what could we build? V'chisei David avdecha meheira b'soicha tochen. David HaMelech is going to have a throne. And that throne needs to be in an Armon. It needs to be in a palace. If you didn't start building a palace for Moshiach, forget about it. It's done. Plan right now to actually go ahead and write 3 Sifrei Torahs to raise the initial funds that is necessary to start pushing this through. So people will be able to have the schus of having a Sefer Torah written and participating in this amazing, the Serusa de Latata, that we're doing something of emunah. We're bringing our emunah down in the most literal sense that Mashiach is about to come.